We're working on a 67 Pontiac GTO now. Just to catch everybody up here, I went and had this soda blasted. What you're looking at is I cleaned all the soda off with muriatic acid and vinegar water, and that's what it looks like after you clean it off. It's going to leave an orange film on it. That will come right off once you start doing your body work and DA sanding and this, that, and the other. What we're really concerned about though, and what this video is actually about, is replacing the front floor sections on this car right here.
Welcome to D.I.Y. Automotive School with my friend Pete and Minnie, the body shop girl. It's everything you need to know about cars and more.
Now, everybody knows I don't like aftermarket parts, but we can't do nothing about that in today's world, because that's basically the only way that we're going to be restoring these old cars, is using the aftermarket parts that are supplied to us. Some are good, some are bad. That's all I can tell you. You know, it's a draw of the luck, or a luck of the draw. If you get good ones, if you get bad ones. I've never really had any problems with the floors of the vehicles. What I usually have problems with are replacing body panels such as this quarter panel right here, or possibly a front fender or a hood. So it's usually the bolt-on and weld-on body parts that usually give us more trouble than anything else when it comes to aftermarket parts. But as far as floors go, I mean, they're pretty much straightforward, and they're all basically the same. It's just a luck of the draw to get a real good one or a real bad one, this, that, or the other. So what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and take that floor out, and I'm going to show you what it looks like. I mean, you can basically see over here what's going on. But what we're going to do is we're going to take that out, and I'm going to kind of walk you through of how I do these and the way that I do them. So let's go ahead and take it from there. So the first thing I do, as you can see, is I take my floor panel that I purchased and I stick it inside on the floor before I cut anything out. And what I'm doing is I'm lining all these holes up, and I'm really paying attention to all the detail that I'm looking at to see if, like right here, here's a section right here, and I look right here and there's a nipple right there. And what I'm doing is I'm paying attention to the detail, like I said, to see if everything's going to line up and actually work before I do any cutting of anything whatsoever. And by the looks of this floor pan, it looks like it's actually a good one, and everything is lining up just like I want it to be. So let's go ahead and take this out and look at the floor. And as you can see, this floor is in very, very bad shape. The passenger side is worse than the driver's side. Another thing that we're going to pay attention to is, if you look right here, and I don't want to move my camera around because I'm trying to get all this done, we got seat brackets right here. So those have to be removed out of the vehicle before we can do any cutting at all. So I'm going to go ahead and grind these down. First, I'm going to go ahead and make a note of measurements, and I'll write the measurements in the back there. And I'm going to do my measurements from the back. I'm going to go from the back forward. And then once I make all my measurements, then I'll go ahead and remove the seat bracket mounts, and then we'll proceed on replacing the floor. So what we'll do is we will just take our tape measure and we'll butt it up next to this. So if I butt it up next to it, it's 17 inches. So I'm going to put 17 inches right here. And then we got to find a measuring point from somewhere on this vehicle, and I think I'm going to go from this hole right here. We're going to measure from the mounting hole, the seat bracket mounting hole, and it comes out to be 11 and, what we got here? Let's see, 11 and 3/8. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and put 11 and 3/8 right here. So now we know that our bracket is 17 inches from this back wall to the back side of the bracket, and it's 11 and 3/8 inches from the inside mounting hole to the edge of our bracket. So we can go ahead and find our spot welds on this and remove that one. Then we got to measure this one here out, and we're going to do it the same way, except we got to clean this off first to actually find where our bracket is. So what I'm going to use is I'm going to use an old wood chisel, and I'm going to chisel that glue off of the floor away from the bracket. Now I could use a grinder to clean this off with, but the problem using a grinder is it'll heat up that floor tar, and once it heats the floor tar up, it'll just ruin our grinding disc. So it's better to go ahead and clean around the edges of our bracket using an old wood chisel or something of the sort to chip it away and clean it. Alright, so now we need to find some measuring points where we can measure, and it looks like we're going to do the same thing back here. We're going to go ahead and just lay the tape measure straight on the floor, butting it up to the back wall, and it comes out to be 31 and 5/8. So to the back edge right here, we got 31 and 5/8. So I'm going to go ahead and get this out of the way. I'm going to put 31 and 5/8 right there. And then we need to find a point somewhere in here that we can measure. And this is where it gets kind of tricky, because we got to figure out, now if I put this one down first, then what's going to happen, I'll be able to measure from this bolt to this bolt. So let's go ahead and do that. Alright, we're going to go like this here, and between each bolt is 13 inches. So that was a good deal. So over here, we got 11 7/8 for this. I'm going to put 1 3 right here, and I'm going to put an arrow pointing toward that. And now we got our measurements of where all this is going to go and how it's going to be put in here. Alright, now that we got the floor tar and all of the debris off of our brackets, we can go ahead and take our grinder, and what I'm going to do is I'm just going to lightly grind that down just to find my spot welds and see where we got to remove spot welds. And by lightly grinding it, I can see that here's a spot weld right here, there's another one right here, here's one right here, and I'm presuming there's one over there. Let's go ahead and grind that down and keep continuing. Okay, here's another one right here, here, and it looks like that's one right there, but we're going to go ahead and see if that's one. Alright. Alright, so it looks like we have located all the spot welds on our bracket. Let's go ahead and clean this one off and see what we got on this one. this one, all I see is that the bracket is welded directly to the floor. Now, normally, if you're going to do this at home, you would probably use a drill to drill those spot welds out. What I'm going to do is use a plasma cutter and see if we can get this thing off of here. Alright, let's go ahead and give it a little pry and see if we can get it off. And it looks like I got the spot weld, but I still got to do some more cutting to get this thing loose from the floor itself. Now I'm looking at my piece here, and it looks like we have removed all the welds and spot welds of our item, but we're still having a problem getting this thing up. And the reason I'm being very careful and cautious with this is because we're not going to replace any of the floor in this back area here. I don't want to rip the floor up, and also I want to keep this as nice and clean and original as possible without twisting and bending it. Alright, we got a couple spot welds that I missed right in this area here. Let's go ahead and take those out. Finally got it, just like that. And that right there is a job in itself, getting that thing off of there. So now that our seat brackets are removed, we can go ahead and set our new floor in there. We're going to mark it all off and see what we got to cut out and what we're going to keep. Okay, now that we got our seat brackets out of our car, the next thing we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and set our floor in here and basically draw us a road map of what we're going to do to replace this. So I'm going to grab my floor just like this, and I'm going to stick it in there. Now remember, get those off there. Remember that I was telling you I want to line everything up as possible and try to get everything, all the indentions and the drain holes and everything else. I want to get those lined up really, really nice on our floor before I start marking it out to remove our floor. So let's go ahead and set this in here, and then once we set it in here, we'll get it lined out, and then we'll be able to trim it up, dice, slice, and cut, and get this thing installed. I'm looking correctly, that is exactly where our floor is supposed to go according to our drain plug right here. Now I am looking up here and I'm seeing that it fits pretty tight up here, and that's because we still got the old floor in it. So what we're going to do now is we're going to take our magic marker, and we're not going to cut it out here. This is just marking it off. Here it is right here. Just showing us where our new floor ends. Go ahead and draw a line here, and I see that this is actually lining up really well with this little dimple here. We got our drain hole here. So this floor that we're working with is actually a good floor to use. Just because we got this big giant piece of floor doesn't mean we are replacing the whole floor. Always remember that. Alright, always remember that just because we got a complete front floor doesn't mean we're going to cut all this out when it's not necessary. All we're going to do is cut out what we need to fix this floor, and that's it. That's where a lot of people get confused. They think, well, I got this panel, this is how it is, I'm going to cut this out and I'm going to put this in there. No, you're not. What you're going to do is you're going to cut out what you need and weld it in there, and that's it. So when we remove this floor out of the car, we can basically see we got more than enough floor here to work with. I don't know if you can see that line, but it comes way back here. And then of course it comes way out here, which we won't even be replacing any of this. And it comes way up here, which we might be replacing some of this. And then of course it goes way up there and meets up with the firewall, and it's got our kicker panel right there. So what we're going to do now is we're going to take my plasma cutter and we are going to cut our hole out where we want to cut out the bad part only. Remember that. That's all we're cutting out. And then we will trim that panel to fit to the floor where we cut it out.
For watching D.I.Y. Automotive School. Classes don't stop till you know